You know, one of my favorite tools to leave me a smooth polished surface ready for finishing is a card scraper. A card scraper works by having a thin metal burr turned along one edge, and that acts like a little bit of a razor blade. And it leaves you nice wispy shavings that can really cut through nasty tear out or really bad grain on a board. The problem is, once that burr's gone, you're left with a dull card scraper. And then you end up with nothing more than a little bit of sawdust and not those fine wispy shavings. So, what are you to do when your card scraper's dull? Sharpen it, of course. Now you have a couple ways you can do that. The first is to use a file to square up that edge. Then you can polish it with some oil stones or sharpening stones to polish it up and give you a nice true surface that you can then use a burnishing rod to turn a new burr. Or your other option is to use a card scraper sharpening system. We have one here from Woodsmith Fine Tools. I want to show you what it is. So let's talk about it. So in the set, you get this extruded aluminum jig, and that jig holds the included file and a burnishing rod. The file slips in, and it tightens down with 2 thumb screws. And that locks it in place. Then the jig has a 90-degree reference face, and it also has a 45-degree reference face. And I'll show you that in a minute. But the first thing we need to do is determine which edge we want to turn our burr on. And I'll start with this lower edge, and then we'll turn a 45-degree burr on the top edge too. So first, we're going to register the card scraper up against the 90-degree face, and we're going to make a couple strokes along the file. And we're looking for a nice, clean, shiny edge along here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you can feel that it's pretty sharp on the edges, but we don't yet have that burr. So now we have to turn the burr off. And we have 2 different edges on this edge that we could turn a burr. We could turn it on this corner. We can also turn a burr on this corner. That gives you effectively on the card scraper 4 cutting edges that you can sharpen at once. That way, as you're using it, you can rotate through those edges as each one gets dull. So to turn the burr, we're going to start by registering the corner against the burnishing pin. And we're going to make a couple strokes with fairly moderate pressure. We don't have to push real hard here, but we just want to make sure we have good contact. Okay, we can feel that burr is just starting, so we'll go ahead and keep doing that along it. Okay. And we'll go over to the back side now. That feels pretty good. Now let's go ahead and flip this over to the 45-degree one. And I find this gives me a little bit more aggressive of a burr to take a heavier cut. So we'll back out these thumb screws. Okay, now we'll go ahead and sharpen the opposite edge from the one we just sharpened. And we're going to do the same thing. All right, so now that I have a 45-degree bevel basically cut on the edge of this card scraper, same thing, we just have to go over here and burnish it. You can really feel that burr starting to form on the back edge. That's what we're looking for. I'm looking for it basically all the way across, even though we're just going to use it in the center. I usually get that burr all the way across the edge. Feels pretty good. Let's give it one more. All right, so there I have 2 burrs on the lower side, one on the front and one on the back. I also have one on the back side here on the opposite edge of that 45-degree bevel. That's a little bit more aggressive cut. So let's see how this works. So there we go. We can see that this is taking fine little shavings instead of the sawdust that we were getting before. And that's with one of those fine burrs. Let's switch over to that big heavy burr. And you can see that heavy burr is taking a much heavier shaving. Now, no matter what way you take to get to a sharp card scraper, whether it's using a system like the Woodsmith Fine Tools Card Scraper Sharpening System or doing it by hand, make sure you keep your card scrapers sharp and ready at hand to give you nice, smooth results.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tip, subscribe to the Woodsmith Shop channel. Every week we're adding new tips and great woodworking videos. So hit the bell to be notified. Plus, you'll find project plans and downloads in the description below.